From nearly invincible heroes to shadowy anti-heroes, Marvel and DC have long inspired, and occasionally borrowed from, each other's creations. Some characters feel like deliberate homages, while others push familiar archetypes into entirely new directions. Let's start by diving into the very foundation of superhero mythology, and uncover how one iconic figure sparked the creation of a complex, troubled counterpart: Superman versus the Sentry. Superman is the original superhero blueprint. Debuting in 1938, he set the standard with nearly invincible powers: super strength, flight, heat vision, you name it, and an unwavering moral compass that made him the ultimate symbol of hope. He wasn't just fast or strong, he was the idea of what a hero should be: powerful yet good, godlike but grounded in human values. His iconic red and blue costume, the S shield on his chest, and his secret identity as Clark Kent etched him into pop culture for generations. Now, enter the Sentry, Marvel's early 2000s answer, but not just a simple copy. The Sentry was introduced with a wink and a nod, deliberately crafted as a twisted homage to Superman. He shares a similar power set: flight, super strength, near invulnerability, and a big glowing S on his chest. But the Sentry's story dives deep into the dark side. Instead of unwavering confidence, he's plagued by mental instability, grappling with his own fractured mind and a terrifying villain called the Void, an evil born from his own psyche. He's literally a Superman-level powerhouse who's as fragile inside as he is strong outside. Here's where it gets interesting. The Sentry isn't just trying to be Marvel's Superman. He's an exploration of what happens when that ideal superhero cracks. His powers come with a psychological cost that Superman's stories rarely entertain. Whereas Superman embodies hope and resilience, the Sentry embodies fear and self-destruction. His existence questions the superhero mythos itself. What if the most powerful hero is also the most vulnerable? The Sentry's publication history openly nods to Superman's legacy. Created as a rediscovered hero lost in Marvel's past, his narrative plays with metatextual ideas, making you question the nature of reality and memory within comics continuity. Visually and thematically, he's designed to evoke Superman while turning the archetype inside out. So yeah, they look alike and share powers, but calling the Sentry a mere copycat doesn't fit. He's a dark reflection, a what-if scenario of Superman at his most unstable. The Sentry stands not as a rival to Superman's shining ideal, but as Marvel's deeper, darker conversation about power, identity, and mental fragility. If you think that's a wild way to riff on Superman, wait till you hear how Namor and Aquaman mirror each other. Next up, Namor versus Aquaman. Namor the Submariner and Aquaman are basically the original water kings of comics, but don't be fooled into thinking they're just two versions of the same guy. Namor debuted first, way back in the golden age of comics as Marvel's moody, winged ankle, oceanic anti-hero. Aquaman showed up shortly after in DC, evolving into a stoic and regal Atlantean monarch with a knack for commanding sea life telepathically. Before you think Aquaman's just a Namor knockoff, hear me out. Namor first appeared in 1939, conceived as a volatile hybrid of human and Atlantean heritage who couldn't decide if he wanted to protect or destroy the surface world. His ankle wings weren't just a costume quirk, they gave him the power of flight, making him unique among underwater heroes. His temper was legendary too, swinging from brooding lone wolf to Emperor of Atlantis, who could declare open war on humanity at the drop of a hat. Aquaman's first comic appearance popped up in 1941, just a couple years after Namor, but DC slowly changed his vibe over decades. Early on, he was more of a science experiment son with limited underwater breathing and swimming skills. By the Silver Age, he morphed into a serious king of Atlantis, complete with trident and telepathic ability to rally fish armies, which, yeah, sounds goofy, but carries a weighty ecological symbolism. He's basically the ocean's diplomat and guardian. That stoic, noble personality contrasts sharply with Namor's hot-headed, sometimes borderline villainous nature. The appeal of oceanic mythology in Atlantis was massive in the 1940s, tapping into fascinations with the mysterious depths and lost civilizations that captured the public imagination. Namor leaned into that with swashbuckling romance and environmental rage, warning surface dwellers to cut the pollution, or else. Aquaman's stories often explore political intrigue beneath the waves, alliances, betrayals, and the delicate balance of a hidden underwater kingdom interacting with the land world. There's zero doubt Aquaman took big inspiration from Namor's success as Marvel's prototype water sovereign, but Aquaman wasn't just a copy-paste. Over time, DC's writers layered in distinct arcs about responsibility, environmentalism, and diplomacy. Namor's story is raw, more primal. He's sometimes the ocean's angry wrath personified, at others a tragic figure caught in his own pride. Meanwhile, Aquaman grew into a symbol of unity, often rising as the Justice League's ambassador to the seas. Think of it like this: Namor's the volatile rebel prince throwing storms and throwing punches, whereas Aquaman is the battle-hardened king weighing the fate of his people like a chess master. Both embody underwater saltwater royalty, but their personalities and narratives reflect contrasting cultural vibes. Namor's born from early 20th century pulp anti-heroes. Aquaman's from mid-century mythic heroism and ecological awareness. Namor vs. Aquaman is the blueprint for Marvel DC aquatic dueling monarchs, sharing the Atlantis myth, but exploring it through entirely different tones and storytelling moods. If you thought that rivalry was soaked in saltwater alone, wait until we dive into Catwoman vs. Black Cat next, where feline finesse meets outright mischief. Catwoman vs. Black Cat. Catwoman is one of the most iconic femme fatales in comic book history, debuting in 1940 as a seductive, acrobatic cat burglar who blurred the line between villain and ally for Batman. She's not just a thief. She's a complex figure wrapped in moral ambiguity. Early on, her crimes were selfish, but over time her motivations deepened, focusing on protecting Gotham's marginalized communities. The whip-wielding thief is a symbol of empowerment forged through trauma and survival, always dancing on the edge of right and wrong. Enter Marvel's Black Cat, aka Felicia Hardy, who showed up decades later in the late 70s, stepping into that same shadowy archetype. Like Catwoman, she's a feline-themed burglar with killer acrobatics and a knack for slipping away just when you think you've caught her. But Marvel added a twist. Felicia's got probability manipulation powers, bad luck in a bottle she directs at enemies. Plus, her flirtatious cat-and-mouse romance with Spider-Man mirrors Catwoman's tangled relationship with Batman, though with a distinct Spider-Verse flair. Black Cat is widely seen as Marvel's direct analog to Catwoman, revamping the archetype for their world. Skills-wise, both women are master thieves with stealth and combat talents. Catwoman's agility and whip skills make her a formidable foe and lover alike, while Black Cat pairs similar physical prowess with probability powers to stack odds in her favor. Their burglaries aren't random. Both choose targets reflecting personal motives rather than just greed, protecting the vulnerable or punishing the corrupt. Catwoman's morality skews harsh and realistic, sometimes brutal and uncompromising. Black Cat leans into playful trickery and thrill-seeking, even when crossing lines. Romantically, the contrast sharpens. Catwoman and Batman have a dance of shadows. She's adversary and partner, complicated by his rigid morals and her pragmatic ethics. They spar emotionally as much as physically, full of tension, betrayal, and fleeting trust. Black Cat's bond with Spider-Man is different. She's drawn more to the excitement and mystique of his masked persona than Peter Parker's civilian life. Their flirting teeters between temptation and genuine affection, reflecting Felicia's struggle with identity and autonomy. It's less noir romance, more complicated flirtation in a webbed world. Here's where it gets weird. Both have evolved beyond origins as mere cat burglars or love interests. Over decades, each blossomed into nuanced anti-heroes exploring empowerment, trauma, and complex ties to their iconic superheroes. Catwoman wrestles with Gotham's class politics and her search for redemption. Black Cat's stories dive into her family legacy, personal scars, and embracing ambiguity over clear heroism. Marvel didn't just copy Catwoman. They reimagined that essence for a universe thriving on blurred lines between good and bad. Fan debates rage. Who's the better thief? Catwoman's ruthless depth clashes with Black Cat's playful bravado and supernatural edge. Neither is a simple copy anymore. Both claim their own space, embodying versions of the classic feline thief archetype redefined for their worlds and eras. Marvel added, "What if luck was a weapon?" while DC doubled down on dark romance and gritty urban vigilantes. So, yeah, Black Cat started as Marvel's nod to Catwoman, but what we got were two distinct icons shaped by their unique stories and worlds. And if you think complicated cat burglars are niche, wait till you see what's coming next with our bow and arrow heroes. Green Arrow versus Hawkeye. Green Arrow and Hawkeye are basically the archer duel of comic book history, and their stories reveal how similar ideas evolved to fit very different worlds. Green Arrow first shot an arrow in 1941's more fun comics Thurber 73, showing up as DC's gadget-wielding vigilante with a sharp eye for both crime and social issues. He's not just about hitting targets. Early on, his comics dug into political themes and class struggles, making him more than just an arrow-toting hero. Plus, his trick arrows, boxing gloves, nets, and more gave him a flair for inventive crime fighting that mixed old-school swashbuckling with clever gadgetry. Hawkeye, on the other hand, arrived in 1964's Tales of Suspense Nazir 57. Clint Barton started as a circus performer and marksman, not exactly your classic superhero origin, but he quickly found his place on the Avengers, bringing a grounded everyman angle to a team full of gods and super soldiers. Unlike Green Arrow's often lone wolf approach, Hawkeye thrives in the chaos of a team, using his precision and sharp sarcasm to keep things balanced. His arrows are just as flashy and varied, but carry a more practical improvisational edge, matching his brash personality. Here's the thing, Green Arrow's the solo urban crusader, fighting crime in gritty cities, with a bow and a cause. He's a symbol of social justice, often taking on corruption with arrows as much as fists. Hawkeye, meanwhile, adapts the archer concept but adds humor and the reality of being the normal guy among demigods. He's a master marksman, but also the comic relief, the sarcastic heart, making him relatable in a universe filled with gods and monsters. Before you say it's just two guys with bows, that contrast matters. Green Arrow's stories are serious, steeped in political commentary and personal drama, highlighting social inequality and redemption arcs. Hawkeye's tales focus on teamwork and personal flaws, centering on loyalty, friendship, and the struggles of a non-powered hero standing alongside superpowered beings. Their personalities could not be more different. Oliver Queen broods and wrestles with intensity. Clint Barton cracks jokes and owns his flaws. The evolution from Green Arrow's solo missions to Hawkeye's role in the Avengers shows Marvel's broader style, taking archetypes and grounding them through relationships and humor. It's like Marvel asked, what if the Archer isn't just a lone Avenger, but the sarcastic guy keeping the team sane? That shift reshaped the Archer hero formula and gave Hawkeye a unique flavor beyond his Green Arrow blueprint. Fans debate who's a better shot or who has cooler gear, with the Death Battle episode breaking down every trick, arrow, and stunt they pull off. Some say Hawkeye's cosmic level experience tips the scales. Others argue Green Arrow's mastery and street level edge give him a different kind of advantage. What's clear is Hawkeye owes a lot to Green Arrow, but he's more than a copy. He's an evolution. If you think bow-wielding heroes are all the same, wait until you see how artificial intelligences fight for identity. Up next, Red Tornado versus Vision. Red Tornado versus Vision. Red Tornado and Vision are basically the androids who can't stop asking, what does it mean to be human? But before you brush them off as simple copies, hear me out. Red Tornado made his debut in August 1968's Justice League of America th 64. Created by Gardner Fox and Dick Dillon, he was originally built by villains as a machine spy, but naturally he rebels and joins the Justice League. His powers are all about air manipulation, creating tornadoes, whipping up powerful gusts, and flying using the wind. Beyond that, his stories dive deep into his internal struggle to connect with people and prove he's more than circuitry. He fights for acceptance from teammates who see him as just a robot, not a full person. Enter Vision, showing up just 2 months later in October 1968's Avengers '57. Ultron creates him as a synthezoid designed to destroy the Avengers, but just like Red Tornado, Vision flips the script and becomes a hero. His toolkit is different. Dense matter manipulation lets him phase through walls or harden into near invulnerability. Plus, he shoots energy blasts from the gem on his forehead. Vision's character arcs also revolve around identity crises and emotional connections, especially his complicated romance with Scarlet Witch, exploring what makes synthetic life truly alive. The fact they were created within about 60 days of each other is wild. It strongly suggests that both Marvel and DC were tapping into the same 1960s sci-fi vibe. The decade was obsessed with exploring the blurry boundary between man and machine. Rather than one copying the other, this looks like parallel evolution. Both companies wanted an android hero who wrestled with humanity, loyalty, and selfhood while filling tactical roles on their flagship teams. Still, their thematic focus and powers set them apart. Red Tornado's wind-based abilities give him control over elemental forces, making him a living storm on the battlefield. Vision's density and energy manipulation grant him versatility and durability, specialized for infiltration and precision fighting. Emotionally, Red Tornado often emphasizes his outsider yearning for belonging within the League and his family struggles, while Vision's narratives highlight the tension between his programmed origin and emergent emotions, grounding him in Marvel's exploration of love and identity through his connection with Wanda. Despite Red Tornado predating Vision by a short margin, Vision's more prominent status in Marvel's flagship Avengers often makes him the better-known android hero. But it's not just about fame. Their differences in powers and emotional arcs show two distinct ways to tell the sentient machine searches for soul story. So, while they're often lumped together as copycats, these two characters actually reveal how both Marvel and DC interpreted the cultural fascination with artificial life in their own ways, delivering unique team dynamics and storytelling beats instead of straightforward ripoffs. If you think rival androids fighting for humanity is interesting, brace yourself. Next up, we're diving into the cosmic god-tier threats Darkseid and Thanos. Darkseid versus Thanos. Darkseid is DC's ultimate cosmic tyrant, created by Jack Kirby during his Fourth World saga. He rules the brutal planet Apokolips, obsessed with the anti-life equation, an all-powerful formula that strips all beings of free will so he can dominate the universe. Darkseid isn't just about raw strength. He's a terrifying symbol of total control. His Omega beams can kill, resurrect, or teleport targets at will, breaking all known laws of physics. He's the living embodiment of oppressive tyranny, with his entire existence tied to absolute domination. Thanos, on the other hand, is Marvel's purple-skinned cosmic menace, created later by Jim Starlin. But unlike Darkseid's thirst for control, Thanos is driven by death and nihilism. He's fascinated with the end of all things, brooding and philosophical in his obsession with death as an actual character. His iconic weapon, the Infinity Gauntlet, channels cosmic power that lets him reshape reality, time, and existence itself. Thanos wrestles with deep existential questions, giving his villainy a personal, complex edge that Darkseid rarely shows. Before you write Thanos off as just a Marvel copy of Darkseid, hear me out. Thanos clearly owes a huge debt to Darkseid's look and theme. Both are massive, imposing cosmic overlords with stone-like faces who rule with iron fists and have fiery tempers. Their stories revolve around universe-shaking wars and apocalyptic power struggles. Starlin's design channels Kirby's style, and many fans agree Thanos is Marvel's take on that archetype. But here's where it gets interesting. Darkseid seeks to crush free will and enforce cold order, while Thanos embraces chaos through nihilism. Darkseid is pure tyranny. Thanos is a tragic nihilist in love with death. Philosophically, Darkseid is unfeeling and mad, but Thanos is haunted by mortality and despair. This changes how they use power. Darkseid's is intrinsic, an embodiment of the Omega Effect itself. Thanos' power depends on external items like the Infinity Stones, making it absolute but conditional. Thanos experiences self-doubt, love, and obsession, whereas Darkseid barely deviates from his relentless rule. Narratively, Darkseid is the ultimate big bad faced by Superman and the Justice League, immovable, unstoppable, a force of pure evil. Thanos, while still a villain, is more layered. He shows reflection, forms uneasy alliances, and occasionally blurs the lines between villain and cosmic anti-hero. This complexity lets writers explore sacrifice, purpose, and destiny, alongside sheer destruction. Visually, Darkseid's design is primal and mythic, gray rocky skin, a stoic grimace like a godly statue. Thanos is bulkier with that ridged chin and armored for battle, reflecting Titan's warrior culture. They both look intimidating, but embody their brands. Darkseid's epic myth, Thanos' sci-fi brutal grandeur. Fans endlessly debate who'd win if these cosmic titans clashed. Darkseid's power is consistent and intrinsic. Thanos' strength relies heavily on artifacts. Darkseid's Omega Effect penetrates dimensions and bypasses defenses. Thanos, with the gauntlet, is nearly omnipotent, but without it, he's a very powerful brute. So, was Thanos just a copycat? Yes and no. Marvel clearly borrowed from Kirby's awe-inspiring tyrant archetype, but injected nihilism and emotional depth, twisting the trope into something uniquely Marvel. Thanos is essentially Darkseid filtered through existential tragedy. They're thematic cousins, not duplicates. Marvel took Kirby's blueprint and rewrote its meaning. If you think cosmic godlike villains are wild, wait until you see how swamp monsters redefine horror in the next showdown. Man-Thing versus Swamp Thing. Man-Thing and Swamp Thing are two of the most iconic swamp monsters in comic book history, but here's the kicker. They appeared almost at the exact same time, and neither is a straight copy of the other. Man-Thing debuted first, in Marvel's Savage Tales The #1 from 1971. He's a mute, empathic creature lurking in the Florida swamps with a corrosive touch that burns anyone feeling fear. The atmosphere around him is thick with horror and existential dread. He's not just a monster, but a tragic, elemental force tied to the nexus of all realities. Man-Thing's stories have a weird, surreal tone, focusing on horror, traditions, and strange encounters rather than heroic adventures. About a year later, DC introduced Swamp Thing in 1972 with House of Secrets as '92. But Swamp Thing isn't just another monster. He's a plant elemental guardian connected to the green, the force linking all plant life on Earth. His powers are broader. He can manipulate plants globally, regenerate endlessly, and even shift his consciousness among plant life. Unlike Man-Thing's silent, horror-based presence, Swamp Thing's stories evolved into complex tales exploring environmental themes and deep philosophical questions about identity, humanity, and nature. Writers like Alan Moore transformed him into a thoughtful, ecological hero far beyond a simple swamp monster. Here's where it gets weird. Both characters clearly tap into the same swamp monster and horror influences bubbling in early 70s comics. The surge of horror comics popularity and the swamp as a mystical, mysterious place firing imaginations everywhere. Man-Thing and Swamp Thing aren't about one company ripping off the other, but near simultaneous responses to shared genre vibes, with each carving unique directions. Man-Thing channels eerie, atmospheric horror with a melancholic, ghostly vibe, while Swamp Thing leans into ecological superheroics and moral complexity. The differences don't stop there. Man-Thing is basically mute, bound to his swamp with a corrosive touch that literally burns fear away. Swamp Thing Thing speaks, thinks, and wrestles with his role as Guardian of the Green. His stories tackle global ecological crises, political corruption, and existential identity crises. That evolution shattered any simple copycat idea. Swamp Thing became a towering figure of environmental narrative, while Man-Thing stayed in horror suspense and occasional cosmic oddity territory. Fan debates often pit Man-Thing's link to the nexus of all realities and fear-burning touch against Swamp Thing's wide-reaching powers and philosophical depth. Most agree Swamp Thing's broader abilities and intellect give him an edge in a direct fight, but that misses the point. These characters were born in a unique moment for horror and fantasy comics that made simultaneous invention not just likely, but inevitable. Neither company was trying to outdo the other. They both drew from the swamp's same murky, mythic well. So, Man-Thing may have squeaked out first by a margin, but Swamp Thing's lasting impact as an ecological and philosophical hero means this pair is less about literal copying and more about how two companies turn the same horror-rooted idea in wildly different directions. But if you think plant monsters with mysterious powers are wild enough, wait until you hear about a pair of mercenaries who took deadly skill to a whole new level. Deathstroke versus Deadpool. Deathstroke versus Deadpool. Deathstroke is about as classic a DC assassin as you can get, debuting all the way back in 1980 as Slade Wilson, a lethal mercenary with enhanced strength, agility, and surgical tactical brilliance. He's cold, efficient, and deadly. A morally complex antagonist who operates with military-level precision and zero hesitation. You know the type. A vast arsenal of weapons, expert hand-to-hand combat skills honed to perfection, and that signature half-black, half-orange mask that screams, "Don't mess with me." Deathstroke's stories tend to be gritty, dark affairs focused on his calculated attempts to outsmart and outfight the likes of the Teen Titans and other heroes. He's one of DC's most formidable and respected villains. A perfect storm of raw power and cold intellect. Now flip the channel to Deadpool. He showed up a decade later in 1991 in Marvel's New Mutants as Wade Wilson. And honestly, that name alone should have rung alarm bells. Slade Wilson versus Wade Wilson? Not subtle at all. Deadpool's costume design is basically a direct parody of Deathstroke's, same color scheme, full face mask, mercenary vibe. All the visual cues shout homage. The creators have outright admitted Deadpool started as a spoof or copy of Deathstroke, poking fun at that archetype of the silent, deadly assassin. So yeah, no guesswork there. Deadpool is the poster child for copy and twist. But here's where things get really interesting. While Deathstroke stayed the cold, calculating killer, Deadpool mutated into something else entirely. A comedic, chaotic anti-hero who breaks the fourth wall like it's his job. Because, spoiler alert, it literally is. His insane healing factor turns him into an unkillable, unpredictable tornado of mayhem who talks directly to the audience, flouts every superhero convention, and injects pure satire and absurdity into his mercenary missions. Where Deathstroke is the Terminator meeting the Punisher, Deadpool is more like a stand-up comedian with swords who just happens to be unreasonably dangerous. If you read Deadpool's early appearances, you might almost mistake him for a knockoff. But the tone evolved so far from Deathstroke's grim assassin narrative that Deadpool practically invented a new genre of antihero. He's self-aware, wildly unpredictable, and literally plays with narrative itself, breaking every rule that Deathstroke stands for. Deadpool's comics rollercoaster through tonal extremes. One moment violent and grim, the next hilarious and absurd, making him a uniquely meta, irreverent figure in Marvel's lineup who punches straight through the fourth wall with gleeful chaos. This duo is the clearest, most blatant example in Marvel-DC parallels where the connection isn't just fan theory or speculation. Creators straight up acknowledge Deadpool as a parody and reimagining of Deathstroke. It's not just thematic borrowing or subtle inspiration. This is explicit commentary on and subversion of the assassin archetype Deathstroke perfected. That direct lineage adds a fascinating layer to their rivalry. Deadpool started as the copycat, sure, but ultimately becomes the wildly inventive new iteration that flips the script on the original in every possible way. Fan debates about these two usually boil down to a simple question. Deathstroke is the serious, deadly killer whose tactical genius and combat skills make him a nightmare opponent. Deadpool, on the other hand, is the unpredictable wildcard whose healing factor and meta humor give him an edge that nobody sees coming. Who would win? Depends on whether you value cold, calculated skill or chaotic resilience that's basically impossible to plan against. Both have their strengths, and that strategic mismatch is where the fun lies. From a character history angle, the Deathstroke versus Deadpool comparison stands alone as the most objectively documented and discussed example of outright Marvel-DC copying followed by total reinvention. It cuts straight through all the vague similarities people throw around about these universes, and shows exactly how deliberate and playful this kind of borrowing can be. So if you think all these Marvel and DC resemblances are coincidental, coincidences or subtle nods, Deathstroke and Deadpool prove otherwise. They are a perfect case study of copycatting recognized outright, then flipped upside down to create something fresh, wild, and totally unforgettable. Deadpool's debut wasn't just about making an assassin. They made their assassin the jokester who breaks every rule loud enough for the whole universe to hear. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.